the Task Management and Time Blocking Podcast, episode 29. Almost everyone who time blocks manually for enough time starts to wonder what it would be like to automate some of the overhead. They eventually ask that question. Wouldn't it be nice, they think, to click a button and see everything instantly assigned to an optimal slot in their calendar? But does such software even exist? The good news is that, yes, it does. And in this conversation with Dr. Melanie Wilson, we update our prior 2018 conversation comparing the 6 auto schedulers that existed at the time. So, should you be using one of these AI, artificially intelligent, infused apps? Tune into this episode to find out what we discovered and how you could save some time, stress, and maybe even some money. Welcome to the Task Management and Time Blocking Podcast. And welcome back. And as you can see, I've brought my special guest up to join me on the stage. And just before I introduce Dr. Melanie Wilson, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up in case this might be your first time listening to the podcast, because it's a little bit different. So we organize our podcast, our episodes, into 3 parts. The first part, we agitate the problem at hand. The second part, we offer some solutions. And the third part, we talk about implementation. So the first part really sets the tone for the kind of solutions and answers that we come up with, because a good analysis can yield some good reasoning and some good results. And also, we use a bell and a buzzer. And the bell sounds like a little bit of a ding, like that. And the buzzer will play only if we didn't come up with some brand new insight that didn't exist before our conversation started. So the bell is for the insights, and the buzzer is if we actually didn't come up with anything new, because we're trying to not just repeat stuff that we already know, but in the conversation or itself, we're trying to come up with new insights that should entertain and excite the most demanding of audiences. So here's a quick story, and then I'll introduce Melanie. Susan. So Susan currently uses Google Calendar to do her time blocking, but she recently came across an auto scheduler in a YouTube review. These apps promise to revolutionize her productivity by automatically scheduling her calendar and by making smart recommendations. She thinks it would be wise to make the switch, but she's not sure what they do, what the benefits are, and which one to implement. Is there a way to decide between the alternatives that makes sense? There should be. So, but she's not sure where to start, or even if there is a way. Who has the kind of information she wants, and where can she get help in deciding which one to try first, perhaps, and how to go about testing them? When she searches for reviews, she can't find anything in depth that could help. So before we jump into the conversation about what Susan should do, or what you should do if you identify with Susan, let me introduce Dr. Melanie Wilson. She's a clinical psychologist turned homeschooling mother of 6. She publishes the homeschool curriculum called Grammar Galaxy and happens to be the author of A Year of Living Productively. And we've known each other for, I guess, almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who introduced me to my first auto scheduler. And as I mentioned before, she was the guest 2018. The two of us did 2 episodes on the 2 Time Labs podcast, and I'll put that in the show notes, in which we analyzed and compared 6 auto schedulers. Dr. Mel, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm really delighted to be here.
Great. It's awesome to have you here with us. It's still not as if the whole world is talking about auto schedulers since we did our podcast, is it?
No, definitely not.
And if anything, you come across an advertisement and you wonder, what is this? And some of the ads are written to lead you to think that this is the only one that exists of its kind in the world, but we know a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Because there's a bunch of them out there. But the typical person, so here's about an auto scheduler. Maybe a friend is using one, or they see an advertisement, or they see a review, like Sharon, was it Sharon or Susan? Susan, like Susan did on YouTube. Um, she wants to make improvements, but the choice is if she does a Google search, or she comes across a list, like we have a list on the Schedule You website, that's scheduleu.org/apps, of all of the current auto schedulers. I actually had to revise it for our show today because I found out a few of them were out of business.
Hmm.
But she sees a list and it's like, oh my God. Why would she say, oh my God? Why? What's the struggle that she immediately faces, Doc?
Well, there are so many options, and I don't, she doesn't even have a metric for knowing how to evaluate these apps. What should she be looking for specifically? How does she try them out without completely disrupting her life? So it's definitely a quandary.
Right. This is not like, should I use Snapchat or Instagram? It's not a fun, it's not a fun thing, right? It's not, should I
Mhm.
use this nice, should I use Wordle? Should I try that? Or should I try some other game that's, this is not a leisure activity. Because in
Mhm.
her calendar is every single meeting that matters.
Mhm.
And if she's time blocking, then her commitments, her priorities are all scheduled.
Mhm.
So her calendar has become like mission control. And when someone comes along and says, "Hey, I got a better mission control for you to use," you kind of go, "Hmm, right?"
Mhm.
It's not an easy answer. So inside, she may feel conflicted and confused. And what may have brought her here is the fact that she wants to make improvements because she knows she can't use the same app forever. At some point, it's going to get stale. She wants to keep up with the Joneses to some degree, at least be in the pack. She doesn't want to be using, some 1995 app and it's already 2023 and she's back there using something that nobody else uses. Um, she wants to keep up and to make sure she's using the most productive technology and one that doesn't provide for any public embarrassment, for example. And she's saying, there should be a way for me
Mhm.
to pick an auto scheduler. I should be able to make my way from doing my manual time blocking to using an auto scheduler because
Mhm.
like many people who use an auto scheduler, once they've used them for a while, the number of tasks becomes onerous.
Mhm.
It doesn't take much to throw off a schedule, and then she's got to go in Google Calendar, for example, and individually drag and drop each item into its correct place
Mhm.
every day because almost every day there's some disruption that she didn't account for.
Right.
And no one tells you when you pick up time blocking, you're really going to become an expert in manual time block relocation. That's never a part of the description, right? It's always
Right.
about the benefits, but
Mhm.
never about the costs.
Right.
And the benefits really kick in when, you may not see them when you're only time blocking 5 tasks a week, but when you get to 100 and 200, no, we're getting serious. It's like, I'm
Mhm.
going to spend all day having to rejuggle this schedule, and the auto scheduler is promising to take the pain away, isn't it?
Mhm.
And in a prior podcast, we talked about motion and some of the claims that they made. And what did you think? I'll ask you to repeat what some of what you said. Are they
Well,
a little bit?
you I absolutely agreed with you that motion is like an early version of an auto scheduler. It has some features that if you've never tried an auto scheduler, you might really appreciate them. But I think, as you were mentioning, the more tasks you add to it, I think the more frustration you're going to have because there's no way to differentiate the type of task and when you want it scheduled besides saying, here's how firm the deadline is and the priority of the task. That's pretty much it. Although I think there is a start date too, but it's going to be frustrating for you to try to translate what you want in your schedule to the Motion app.
And I guess we've not seen the kind of onboarding in any app that would be truthful about what you're likely to experience first, second, and third, right? They kind of
Mhm.
gloss over that, tell you how to use it. Here are
Mhm.
the mechanics, but not here's where the pain is going to come in.
Right.
Let's be honest, right?
Mhm.
Because there is a learning curve, and you are talking about for someone who's already time blocking and would look to an auto scheduler. Chances are they're not. It's not. They're not a 10 task person. They're
Right.
a hundreds of tasks or 100 task person.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we're talking a major. It's a major commitment to switch because you got to
Major,
move all the tasks manually, usually from one app
usually.
to the next. So
Mhm.
you have a challenge, you have a problem.
Mhm.
And of course, the problem that you said about you have a life and you're using this to run your life, and you can't go up to production levels in a beta test and see if it works. You got to do it for real.
Mhm.
So the stakes are kind of high, and it's kind of hard to say, well, should I stay stagnant or do I throw my hat in the ring and just try it and see if it works, which could be kind of reckless, right?
It could be, and especially because if you don't trust the auto scheduler that you're using either as a trial or for real, then you really are going to have another layer of difficulty in your work life because now you're trying to figure out, well, should I go back to what I was using? And then I have to, if you've moved tasks, then you really have an issue because you have to
Right.
put them all back. So,
And who the
yeah.
heck wants to do that? Having said
Yeah.
that, you did pick up an auto scheduler and unpick it. So you made the switch. You made a two-stepper since you introduced me to auto schedulers back in 2015. It
Right.
was a revelation to me. It led me to rewrite my book, come up with a second edition way earlier than I thought I would need to. I changed my whole workflow
Mhm.
and I followed your lead and you changed your mind. Tell us
Well,
so that folks have an idea of what's involved here.
now you're making it sound like I was just real, like, fly by night, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm done with that." I used SchedPal for years and years, and years, and, um, I will just tell you that the problem that I ran into is I started feeling like I was spending more time trying to get SchedPal to read my mind than just doing it myself, just scheduling every day myself. And so that's what I started doing. Instead, I made the switch to Amazing Marvin, which has a lot of different strategies that you can use with the same task list. You don't have to move your task list from app to app to app. You can try all different kinds of approaches, including time blocking, um, where you can, allot tasks to different time blocks. It does not have an auto scheduling feature at this time, which would be nice because I would love that I could say, "Hey, I would like to see if Amazing Marvin can figure out what I want so I don't have to do it myself." But without the problems in switching task managers that we were just discussing. But right now, it does not have that feature. And so I just take my task list and pop each of the items into an agenda for my day, and I move the tasks around manually.
Right. So
Mhm.
there's a practice that you're engaged in that many people engage in that SchedPal was, might I say, over-engineered to perform. Because I guess you could have used SchedPal. It was
Mhm.
just harder to use SchedPal for that particular purpose.
Well, okay, here's an analogy for you. This is how I felt. I felt like I had an assistant, a paid assistant, and I was spending so much time trying to get her to understand what I wanted that it was faster for me to just do it. And
Right.
so that's why I made the switch. Um, and I'm not I will say this, that I think about SkedPal a lot. And I
Every
think about,
day.
"Oh," you
like
know,
a
maybe,
like a lover
like
that you broke up with
exactly!
years
I
ago.
think,
Oh,
"Oh,
get
maybe I
past
could have
it.
made it work."
Maybe I should have given it another chance. He wasn't that
Exactly!
bad
I
compared
didn't
to.
try hard enough.
Oh, I forgive him now, but should I really get taken back?
It's so funny. It's so funny to me. But, moving all my tasks back over, ugh,
Uh-huh.
that's just something I just really don't enjoy that. But, what I am 100% committed to is scheduling. And, in terms of time blocking, my time blocks right now, I've tried it with, like, hard time blocks that are actually dictated within Amazing Marvin, or they're in the background on my Google Calendar, but I just don't even like that amount of structure. I just know in my mind, from this time to this time, this is the type of task that I do, and from this time to this time. And so because it's just in my mind, it doesn't matter if I put some more tasks outside of that time block, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, I'm gonna cut into my cleaning and organizing time around here because I really want to get all of these administrative tasks done today. I'm just feeling it. I just want to do them all together. So
Mhm.
that's how I am managing my tasks right now.
Right. Right. So folks, as you're listening, you want to pick up on the nuances, the behaviors that Melanie is adjusting, and she's working to get the software to match her behavior pattern, which has changed, and then the software that would best suit the new behavior pattern, the newest behavior pattern. And the truth is, someone like Susan, someone who is committed to a certain high level of productivity, where you're managing lots of tasks, this is not a temporary game. This is not a one-shot thing. This is a lifestyle that Melanie is
Mm.
describing. This ongoing fitting and refitting and altering, changing, and managing is not a one-off. This is the price you pay to manage a certain volume of tasks effectively. And, you know, bright, creative people with big commitments. So Melanie didn't also mention that she's homeschooled 6 kids at once. I have no children, so it's just, 6 is like
Yeah.
monumental. And people with big commitments who have lots of managing lots of tasks, lots of projects, and find themselves tempted to use an auto scheduler are also committing to this path of behaviors plus technologies, and finding and fitting the best match between the two. So this is like like I said, this is like a lifestyle.
Mhm.
So Susan, she has a choice in her mind. Probably her only choices are, make a reckless choice, make a reckless decision, or go stagnant. She doesn't want to do that. Most people, when faces this decision, they say, you know what, forget it, I'm just gonna stick with my manual time blocking. Or they say time blocking on a whole doesn't work, I'm going to go back to just using a
Mm.
task management app that has no
Mhm.
calendar attached to it at all. So
Mhm.
they regress, because regressing seems to be easier than trying to go this. It's pretty much an unknown path, I think, for most people, because there's very few who talk about the journey from task management app to uh, uh, auto scheduler, to time blocking, to an auto scheduler. There's very few who, we talk about it a lot here on this podcast, but the progression that people make is kind of a lonely journey, and it's hard to find role models to say, okay, well, here's the journey I made, here are the mistakes I made. So we're here to also tell you that you're not alone, that we understand this struggle, or we can share from our experience of being on the struggle and having to make these tough decisions. Um, so ultimately, we really want to give you some relief. What would it be like to have the kind of insights that help you to decide whether or not an auto scheduler is for you and which one is, and some of the criteria to use when deciding. So, is that fair enough, Melanie, in terms of
Mhm.
what we want to
Yeah,
accomplish?
yes, that's excellent.
Great. So, it should be some peace of mind, coming out of this that we want to provide you. Okay, so if you are listening and you're not online, we have dropped the link, or we will drop the link for scheduleu.org/apps. And these are all the latest auto schedulers. Okay. Melanie, do you have your list in front of you, or do you want me to share it with you?
I can see it.
Let's talk about that list a little bit because there's a bunch of things that have changed. So the list is somewhat longer since 2018, and I'll read it off if you're not watching this on video. So at the top is Schedpal, which is, by the way, I have a share in Schedpal, a teeny tiny foothold, but I do have a interest. So you should listen to me like I'm a shill. Is it shill, right? Like people who try to sell you something, but they have some other thing going on, like it's a racket or something. So I have a racket going on. I'm a Schedpal user, but I'm also a very small owner. But Schedpal is at the top of the list because that's the one that we were both using at the time. Focuster, Sorted 3, Time Hero, Butler Roy, Taskline, Reclaim.ai, Mayday, Future Render, and Motion. Now, the ones that existed up to the time we did our comparison, um, the list would have ended at Time Hero, and it would have added on, I think, Future Render. But anyway, the new ones are Motion, and we did a podcast on Motion alone that you can check out in the stack. Uh, Mayday, Reclaim AI, and Taskline, and Butler Roy. So there's 5 new ones that have come up since then. Okay, so those are the ones that have sort of made their appearance, and we're going to make reference to the analysis that we did, however long it was ago, with between the different ones that existed at the time. Um, we'll drop the link in the chat. But so at the time we compared 6, and we said, okay, well, here are the pros and cons of each one. Here are the apps and some of the capabilities that we like about the ones that we've tested. Here are the things that we didn't like. Um, Maybe we should have started with, I guess, the big findings of what we came up with the last time, and then go from there, because they may not have changed all that much. Because I think I think one of the assessments I've made, Melanie, tell me if this is wrong, is that there's not a breakthrough app that has emerged in the last few years. It's
I agree.
kind of more of the same, no?
Mhm. Yep.
It's more like the same idea at the same level, and there's no brand new interface. There's no brand new technology that we can't even spell. There's nothing. They're kind of all still doing the same things, which is that you give the app a calendar, you you give it some parameters, you give it a calendar of fixed, maybe more specific. You give the app a calendar of fixed appointments. You throw in some flexible tasks, and what you want the auto scheduler to do is to keep the fixed appointments, like the one that we're having right now, which was in our
Mhm.
calendars. You want to keep those the same and not move them, but it wants the tasks that are free floating, that can be rescheduled, to be rescheduled, right? Um, and you want that to happen in an instant. So the app should take care of it, and it should present to you, offer you recommendations for an optimized schedule.
Mhm.
Is that fair enough in terms of a
Yep. I think that's
great?
spot on.
Great. So um nothing has changed. Do you agree? Nothing has really evolved, or
Yeah, I agree, and I've been seeing ads for Focuster as well as
Okay.
motion, and I have looked at it again, and I don't see anything, you know, significant that has changed.
So we're pretty much basing our analysis then on the same parameter. There's no new parameter then.
Hmm.
None of them have introduced a brand new parameter that we would say is amazing and
Right.
breakthrough. And okay,
Hmm.
so it's really a matter of using the same parameters just in new software. Okay, so what were the parameters that we thought were really important from your recollection?
Um, well, I know that having a reschedule button was huge.
Right,
We
for us that
really
was a big deal.
Yes, because I mean, what is the point of having an auto scheduler if you can't just say, okay, now taking everything into account, the appointments that I've added or deleted or tasks that I've added or the fact that I've been procrastinating um, and not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Now tell me what I should do given all of that. And if you don't have that ability to just quickly say, "Yeah, reschedule," I don't I don't think it's truly an auto scheduler at all.
Ooh, you think it's like the Gestapo, huh? It's just coming
Well,
to take over your life and run it.
I don't know. I just feel like it's it's just not automatically rescheduling, and that is what I would expect. I mean, with SchedPal, I liked to keep my schedule the way that it was planned until I was ready to hit that reschedule button. That is for sure. But just to have that as an option that I can quickly say, hey, now give me an optimized schedule based on what has happened in the last few hours is it's primary for me.
Right, right, right. On the prior podcast, I said it'd be weird to have an assistant and you give her two items in your schedule and say, and then she said, okay, I figured it out. Here's what you need to do. And you'd say, no, but I haven't given you everything. Hold on a minute. Let me tell you all the things I have to do, and then you tell me what I should do first, second, or third.
Hmm.
To have her kind of jump in and do it for you before you're ready is a little bit strange, right?
Right. And it's also the case, I know in a review that I wrote, I advised not hitting that reschedule button until you feel like, okay, I've marked complete the things that I have accomplished, and I want SchedPal, for example, to give me more things to do.
Right,
um, it wouldn't make sense to hit the reschedule button because then, maybe you got something done early. Well,
right,
fantastic. You have a little bit of a break time. But SchedPal won't see it that way. If you click reschedule, it's just going to say, okay, now start on your taxes. It's like, oh, that's no. I didn't want to do that.
right, right. And in the analysis we did in 2018, only two of the auto schedulers had reschedule buttons.
Hmm.
Because in the fact is in real life, like do your taxes, the we want the auto scheduler to be kind of human, to be
Hmm.
like a human being who knows that taxes are tough and you need a little break afterwards.
Right.
And that's pretty advanced, but at
Hmm.
least the person shouldn't be optimizing your schedule before you're ready.
Right.
Right? They should be in sync with you to some degree.
Hmm.
And to
Hmm.
have your auto scheduler just every time you add a task, it does it all over again. Is like, wait, hold on a minute. Wait, let me get to where I'm ready for you. Don't
Right.
pace ahead and do your thing
Right.
until I'm ready. And I mean, when you're not ready for it, it's a little bit like, you know, hold your horses.
Hmm.
Um, so there were only two that we found. Sorted three, which is still around, very much so, and Schedpad were the two that had auto schedule buttons. And I think, tell me if it's fair to say, when we mentioned this in the analysis of motion, that a lot of these, all of the auto schedulers, in a way, they need to follow a particular path of development
Hmm.
because
Right.
the job that we're trying to get done, For those of our listeners who are familiar with the jobs to be done theory, there's a job that you're trying to get done. That job that we're trying to get done is the same for all the auto schedulers. A few have added in some bells and whistles that we didn't ask for and we don't really need in
Mhm.
order to get the job done. But there is something happening here that's commonly human, which is I have a lot of tasks, I have a calendar, I have them stored somewhere. I need everything to work together and mesh, and I need it to come back with a nice schedule that I compare it to. I did on the last podcast to Mrs. Landingham,
Mhm.
Jeb, Jeb, Jeb Bush. No, this was Jeb somebody's president's secretary on the West Wing. That he would turn to her and ask her for the schedule. She would give him the perfect schedule every time. So she was his auto
Mhm.
scheduler, a
Mhm.
perfect one. And we kind of want our interface or program to behave that way.
Mhm.
So there's something very human. This has gone on. Auto scheduling or someone else scheduling your calendar has been going on for a long time in the human form. We're really replacing the human form with software. So this has gone on for a long time, hundreds of years. It's going to go on for hundreds more years. It's a human need that is unchanging. So it almost seems to me as if all the auto schedulers pretty much need to follow the same path in terms of meeting human needs. What do you think?
I agree with that. Um, I I don't know, how quickly they're gonna be able to to develop the technology to be able to do that, but it's interesting to watch it play out.
Yeah, yeah. For example, when we were using, there still isn't any talkie interface, any audible. You can't say, um, change my 4 o'clock appointment to 5 o'clock, and then give me a new automated schedule. You
Right.
can't talk to your computer or your phone and have it. It's
Mhm.
not as easy as all that.
Right.
I don't know if I don't know that any of them even take voice commands. I could be wrong. It could be in development right now, but
Right. Yeah,
maybe.
I don't think so, and then even more nuanced, like, I found myself trying to figure out what SkedPal's algorithm
Mhm.
was. It's like, "Well, why did you tell me to start working on, um, my daughter's graduation invites today? I'm very
Mhm.
surprised that you suggested that. So let me try to figure out why you said that."
Right.
And it could really be frustrating because I'd say, okay, well, I'll change the priority. Nope, nope. It's still saying to do it today. So, what is it? Well, then sometimes I would find out, oh, it's because maybe I have the whole graduation party project set at a different priority, a different start date, a different deadline. So it if I was talking to a human being, I could say, "I don't wanna do that today. I no, don't bug me about that until
And
until
then
until Friday."
the human being would ask, well, why
Exactly.
not? Because
Why not?
you
Right.
need to do that in order to do this. And you
Mhm.
would explain why not that today. It could be
Right.
because of the dependency. It could be because you're not in the mood,
My
whatever,
energy.
whatever
Right.
it is. The energy level
Right.
might be off. So you'd
Right.
have that dialogue. And
Mhm.
when you're picking up an auto scheduler, folks, you're really training a robot. You're training this thing that is very powerful, but you are discovering your nuances as you're using it,
Mhm.
and you're translating that into behavior by the app.
And okay, so you just mentioned something that I think is huge. It's a huge issue with auto schedulers.
Mhm.
If I can convince or not convince, if I can train SkedPal to give me the right tasks on the right days with respect to my daughter's graduation party. That's great, right? I have it all worked out. But guess what? The next project I have to start all over. I have to start all over to make sure that SkedPal knows what I want to do with respect to this project and when and all of that. And if it was a person would say, "Oh, I remember the last time you were having a big party
Right.
and this is how this is how we did it and you really liked that. And so this is how I'm going to schedule it for you. You don't get that with SchedPal.
You
So
know, I
or
think that's an
any
insight.
autoscheduler.
That's one of these insights that deserves a ding.
Oh, okay.
So I'll put the ding in afterwards when I edit this. Let me just write down the time of the ding because the software isn't cooperating with us today. So
Yeah.
except for, uh-huh. So here's why I thought of that it deserves a big ding, because there should be a way for us to more directly train the software to not do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's doing certain things, yes, but there should be a way for us to say never program, almost like a list of never of negative attributes.
Okay.
Because I think Skedpan and the others are based on positive attributes,
Mm-hmm.
but not negative ones where we say if what's an example of a negative one? So actually, the time block the time blocks that not time blocks the heat maps, the time maps that Skedpad uses are a
Mm-hmm.
way of saying negative blocks.
Right.
That's a way of telling the system that do never schedule an item at this particular point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But Skedpal, I think, is the only one with time blocks with
With those
time maps.
maps. Mm-hmm.
So I'll explain what a time map is, Melody, before I lose
Okay.
everybody.
Okay. So the time maps aren't just um, I want to do my creative work from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. It's a lot more powerful than that because I can make that time block 9 to 11 a green time map, not time block, sorry. I
Time
can
map.
make that time map a green time map, and that means that this is the best time for me to do this creative work.
Right.
But if I am up against a deadline on a high priority project, such that I would stay up late to do it, I can create a yellow portion of that time map for creative work. And I can even create a red one, which is like all hands on deck, panic time. I have to get it done. And so I will allow you, Schedval, to schedule this task in this time block, I guess, that's
Right.
part of the time map,
Right.
but only in the most urgent circumstances. And so that is a way that we can communicate with SchedPal. These are our preferences, but being realistic, because
Right.
I can say, I'm only going to work on this writing project from 9 to 11. But the truth is, if I get behind, I get distracted, I don't get it done, it's not going as quickly as I want, then I probably would work over my lunch hour, or I would work until bedtime because it has to get done.
Right. 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 I think there's a little bit of correction. I think the red is the negative that you don't schedule in those blocks, if I recall
No,
rightly.
red. So it's no block is you can't schedule. SchedPal
Oh, it's
can't
no
schedule
block.
anything.
Okay.
The red is only like in the most
Okay.
dire circumstances,
Would you
then
use
you
that time?
can.
Okay, because now it's consuming, okay, the entire, and the green is the best. Green
Right.
is the
The
best
green is
case, red is the worst case,
schedule
and no
away.
block is
Yellow is
doesn't
like
exist.
if we need to,
Right.
okay, but red is like only if there's blood.
Right. Okay. Right. Right. In the worst circumstance,
Right.
you're
That's
you're you're right.
that's how I think of the red.
So
It's like,
so
okay.
that's actually a highly nuanced way of giving
It is.
SchedPal negative feedback. The
Yes,
other one I thought of that you just mentioned is if SchedPal could read what happened yesterday,
I know.
and if it sees you going to bed at 1 o'clock, it automatically could say, when you log in for the first time, it says you're logging in later than usual and you had a late night last night. Do you want to? Just that little
I know.
give and take would
Right.
be
Wouldn't that be
tremendously
amazing?
helpful. Just at
Um,
least a hint that it kind of understood where you're coming from.
right.
But
And
there's no understanding like that yet. It probably might come. I don't want to say it's machine learning because it is, but I don't want it to automatically reschedule. I want it to give me the recommendation or the choice or the
Right,
hint.
right. And you and I talked a little bit about some of the suggestions that I'm getting from my iPhone these days. And so here is a great example, I think. My phone knew from my schedule that I was doing this podcast with you, and it asked me, "Do you want me to go into do not disturb mode?"
It
Uh,
did.
oh yes,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good.
Yes, and I
That's
said,
good.
"Yes, that would be great. That would be
That's
great." And so
great.
I said that. And so if our auto scheduler could say, "Hey, you were working." Now, I mean, there is a problem with it, I think, a little bit in that you would have to be checked in somehow so that your
Uh-huh.
auto scheduler knows that you're working late at
Mm-hmm.
night. But
Mm-hmm.
then to have your auto scheduler not to say, "Hey, you had a late night. Do you want me to push some things back?"
Right.
Or even more important, I'm really speaking as a psychologist. Um, I would love to have my auto scheduler say, "Do you want to work late again tonight? Or do you want to have
An
um,
early,
you
an
know,
early
a
bedtime.
cutoff time? Do you want to adjust it back?" And, I think that would be super helpful. I know that's very advanced, but it would be
But
great.
actually, I track my time using an app on my phone, and I put in my day's consumption
Mhm,
just before I go to bed. And it prompts me throughout the day to update the my time usage.
mhm,
So it's a really, it used to work better than it does because the something changed in Android and it no longer pops up the way I want it to. Can't fix it. But
mhm.
my time is being recorded, my usage.
Okay.
And it probably wouldn't take much for an app to make us some smart. I could teach it.
Mhm.
I could say if I go to bed after 11, then change my alarm to da 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 da.
Right.
If I
If
just
I
put in
don't
some
have an
conditions.
appointment.
If I don't have an appointment at 6, I could put in
Yeah.
some conditions that could
Mhm,
tell it, okay, here's what I'm doing. You know what I'm doing because it's in my schedule. You
mhm,
know what I did because you have my prior time usage.
mhm.
So make some intelligent recommendations like the one that your phone made to you. Now we're
Right.
talking. And that's kind
Mhm.
of where we it's a bit klutzy.
Yeah.
All auto schedules are a bit klutzy
Mhm.
because
Right.
they require you to go to this place. That's all text. There's no voice. It's all looking at
Mhm,
a calendar, looking at an app. It
mhm,
requires you to interface with this app. And
mhm.
usually your calendar is somewhere else. Your Google Calendar, for example, is
Right.
someplace else. So you're interacting with this scheduler over here so that your calendar over here looks the way it should.
Mhm,
And it's clunky because we're not, that's not normal, natural for us. What's natural for us is to say, I had a late night, cancel my morning, and start me working at 12 instead. I'm going to take the morning off. And
mhm.
Schedpal or whatever auto scheduler says, no problem. You have no appointments. I'll take care of it for you. And you're done. That's what we really want is some kind of very humanish interface.
Right.
But it seems like what we're getting from the auto schedulers, Schedpal included, is more an emphasis on features
Mhm,
that are they're I would call them narrow tail features, so to speak. The
mhm.
features that you would need 1% of the time, as opposed to the interface you want to use 100% of the time.
Mhm.
So if all of that resource could be taken from the features that you're trying to add that maybe duplicate features in other places for some auto schedulers, or you would only use in a rare occasion, or only the super, super, super geeks would actually use, and brought some of that to say, okay, well, let's create an interface that actually fits in with the job that the user is trying to get done.
Mhm.
I think that would be the kind of progress that if we were sitting here in a few years' time, we would say, wow, these things have they're totally different. They don't even feel like software anymore. In fact, the
Right.
auto schedule, is it even there? Because I'm just having these conversations about my calendar and schedule, but I don't see the auto scheduler because it's somewhere in the background doing something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to think about it. But
I
right
know.
today, we have to think about it.
Would be pretty amazing. And even
Yeah.
just to have, wouldn't it be neat to have your auto scheduler maybe before each big time block, and by time block here, I mean more like morning, afternoon, evening, if you do anything in the evening. But just to have your auto scheduler check in with you and just say, what's your energy level like? And then if you say, ugh, I'm really really dragging, then to have your auto scheduler say, do you want me to replace these tasks with tasks that you have marked as good low energy tasks?
Right.
Just like ask me, Wouldn't
Right.
that be neat? Because then I could say, I am really low energy and it would be great. I mean, I wouldn't have this whole conversation with my task manager, but you know what I mean? I would
Yeah.
be thinking to
Yeah.
myself, I am low energy, but the fact is, I really need to get these things done. So I'm just going to push through and knock them out. But it would
Right.
be, as a psychologist, just knowing how rebellious some of us are, I think it would remove a lot of the resistance
Right.
that we have to doing tasks, just to be given permission by our task scheduler, just like we would be with an assistant who knows us very, very well, to
Right.
say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You had a late night last night. Are you sure you want to do these really, high focus activities this morning? And then if we say, you know what, thank you for asking, but yes, I will
Right.
get them done, I think we would feel so much better about our work.
Right. Right. It would be, and it would feel more comfortable for us because it's kind of a match for what we've been doing for most of our lives anyway.
Hmm.
More natural in the psychological sense, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It would fit.
Hmm.
Um, and I wish, because today I think what we're saying is that you can kind of get them to do what you want them to do,
Hmm.
but it takes a lot of work. And you've
It
basically
can.
bailed out and said, you know what, auto schedulers, too much work to get it to do what I want it to do.
For me, yes, I was getting frustrated. I would even contact tech support a couple of times because I just couldn't figure out why it wasn't, doing what I wanted it to do. And it was always my fault because typically, just as I said before, typically I had a task that was part of a project that had a different,
The
I
project
had
had a
given it a different
priority,
date or priority or whatever.
right? And it was reading
And
the priority from the project as opposed
yeah,
to
yeah.
only the task. And it was forcing the project earlier than you wanted to see it, the
Mhm.
task earlier.
And that's another issue that I've been having with task managers in general. The traditional idea that stems from David Allen's work is that, if you have a multi-step task, you need to make it into a project so that you're not overwhelmed, like taxes, for example. You don't
Right.
do taxes, you collect your W-2s, you do all these kinds
Wonderful.
of little steps in it. But I have found that scheduling projects within task managers creates a level of complexity that it it's worse for me, all of that finagling, than it is just to look at, oh, I have taxes to do. And then I will figure out what I'm going to do step by step.
Right. You do
So,
it
I mean,
yourself rather than give it to the auto
right, right.
scheduler
And
to.
that's a personal preference. And I can absolutely see some people they want the whole thing broken down. First I do this and then I
Right.
do this. And I think when you work with an auto scheduler, it just really creates um some some challenges, to getting that schedule the way you want it to go.
Right. I interviewed Mike Vardy recently, and he talked about a beginner time blocker shouldn't use fine finely defined time blocks. Like, don't use 1 hour time blocks. Use big blocks of like 4 hours. And even if you just call it afternoon stuff, you have an idea of what goes in the afternoon. And just
Yeah.
do the afternoon stuff in the afternoon. So at least you're getting into the idea of
Mhm.
manipulating these blocks. And you can do the same thing with an auto scheduler. It's just you decide what goes in my after lunch work. You could decide what goes into that. It's more time boxing than time blocking, but
Right,
it's the same
right,
idea.
right.
But you
It's
don't
the
go
same
down
idea.
to the 15-minute increment and say
Right.
at the 15th minute I'm going to take off 10 minutes and then I'm going to stop, because that's
Mhm,
more detail than you really want to have to manage in your overhead activities.
mhm.
If you don't want the overhead, then don't go to that level of detail. And probably the recommendation is that you're brand new, don't try.
Right, right, don't try. You know, I feel like we need to talk about one of the major reasons to schedule manually or to auto schedule.
Mhm.
It's a huge benefit, and I don't think we should get so far afield talking about all the details of auto schedulers that we lose track of that, and that is that you understand that our time each day is limited,
Right,
and we have to make decisions about what we're going to do in that limited time. Our schedule is a container for
right,
our tasks, and
right,
it forces us just like our checking account, it
right,
forces us to
yes,
realize that we don't have unlimited checks to write with our time,
right, right,
and that we have to say, okay, this is more important than this. And this is how long it typically takes me to
right,
do this task. I am really amazed at how much better I have gotten at estimating how long it takes me to do things. I have had a dramatic improvement in that, and I am much, much happier when I plan a reasonable list of things to do in a day and I see how I'm going to, at least allegedly, how I'm going to get them done in a
right,
day versus a task list that has 30 things on it.
right.
And I'll check off 5 or 6 on a good day. And then I'm left feeling like I'm not doing enough. I'm left feeling
Disappointed,
overwhelmed, right?
25 tasks behind
Right.
at the
So,
end of the day. Should have gotten them done.
right. Like I'm lazy or something when,
Right.
one of those tasks, I keep going back to taxes, but if one of those tasks that you finished was taxes, holy cow, that's a great day.
Yeah,
You did
right.
well.
Right. You
Um,
did really well.
And so I don't think we should lose sight of that bigger picture. If
Right.
you are doing anything, whether it is a great big time block like afternoon, or morning, and then you can see that there is a limit to what you can accomplish in the morning or in the afternoon, and
Right.
that allows you to make some good decisions about what you're going to do today, maybe what you're not going to do at all.
Right.
um, that is a very, very good thing, and all of the details about trying to get an auto scheduler to help you with that, I think is just icing on the cake.
Right. Right. There's an awareness that we're hoping you get to in your time blocking. That's why you're time blocking in the first instance, right?
Right.
That's I agree with you. That's the big deliverable. It's not the use of the auto scheduler or the training of the auto scheduler, or it's this kind of clarity. David Allen talks about it, but then he negates it. It's kind of strange. He says your mind is for having, well, your mind is for,
It's supposed to be like a mind like water.
yeah, but there's a more pithy there's a pithy statement that also says essentially don't use your mind for holding tasks. Instead, have it
Right.
come up with the tasks. So
Exactly.
he's absolutely right.
Mhm.
And it's proof. It's the Zeigarnik effect is an expression of that, and that research was done long before he wrote his book in the 1920s by Bluma Zeigarnik. But he then says don't create a schedule for the day.
I know.
But the
No.
same rules should apply because you're left having to juggle and rejuggle a bad schedule that's mental when
Mhm.
you don't create a schedule for the day. And that's why time blocking taken off in the last decade as a meme. I
Mhm.
was taught time blocking in about 2000. I
Okay.
tried it before, but then I learned how to do it more effectively and could actually implement it in about 2000. So I've
Mhm.
been doing it for, I don't know, 20 years.
Wow.
And I feel old all of a sudden. And I've gotten better at it. It's producing better results. I
Mhm.
produce better SMS than I had before.
Right.
And I wouldn't go back at this point doing it any other way.
Mhm.
But the way he wrote his book was as if to say, the benefits I talk about when I say take things off your mind and put them in front of you doesn't apply to your schedule. And I've never understood that
Me either.
logic or thinking. And
Well,
if you're someone who's time blocking, you probably have already passed that point. But
I
it
yeah.
does, he was correct though, that you're looking to take stuff off your mind so you can be free to focus. He was right about it. That's what
I
you're saying.
He is right, and I do think I understand, where he is coming from with not putting things on your schedule, and remember that he wrote his book before, the digital calendars were what everyone was using, it was more of a paper, and I think he didn't want people to add tasks that they may not end up doing to appointments and things that were hard, deadlines that they had to meet and mixing that
Right.
up together because then if we know, yeah, I'm not going to do all that stuff I said I was going to do on my paper calendar, then we'll stop looking at it and we'll stop depending on it and we'll miss appointments and
He saw
we're
it as an integrity issue that you're kind of like lying to
yep,
yourself.
exactly.
And that
So
lying would eventually accumulate to the point where you're not effective anymore.
right. And I don't see it that way now with
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
digital agenda. I see it more as a plan. It is
Right.
a plan for the day, not a you're locked in
Right.
schedule. It's not
Right.
that. It's more like what am I able to fit into this day
Right.
and given that restriction on my time, what is most important for me to do given my energy level and the other things that I have going on today?
Right. Right. And in that respect, Sketpad has evolved from
Mhm.
when we first, we were 1.0 people, right?
Mhm.
In back in beta testing days. It's now to version 3 and it's followed a particular development trajectory. And it it it's it struck us on our last call that all of the auto scheduling apps pretty much are following the same trajectory that Schedpal did.
Mhm.
It's just that Schedpal is a bit further on, better customized for large volumes of tasks, so it allows for
Right.
scalability.
Right.
They've cut out features that they found people don't want to use. So it's a little bit like the research is being done by the one that's, to our mind anyway, the one that's furthest ahead. And then there's further to go. But the
Mhm.
ones who are following are, they're like working out problems that the early versions of Schedpal already worked out. That
Mhm.
like the reschedule button, the time maps, and other things like that. They're working them out. So they're behind. But no one has made that a leapfrog, for example, like to have a voice interface. No
Right.
one has leapfrogged and said, okay, but you don't have to worry about any of that. All you do
Mhm.
is you talk to your computer and it'll be all taken care of in the background. Nobody's there yet. And
Right.
that
No one's
sounds like what we really want.
there. Mhm.
Just
And
all the
you know,
overhead.
I'm just thinking maybe in the interim before we would have that kind of a voice interface, having um, a check-in just look with a couple of questions about, where you're at today. Um, so in other words,
Looking at your yesterday's schedule, you don't need to have a voice interface to see your yesterday's schedule, for example,
well,
or your
that's
yesterday's
true, but
activities.
I'm just saying more like,
Mm.
okay, so "Hey, good morning, Melanie. What's your energy like today?
Uh-huh.
Do you have a new priority for the day?" Wouldn't that be nice?
Okay. As opposed to having to go in there, click around,
Yep.
change the priorities
Yes.
in some deep setting,
And I could say,
then hit the
because
auto.
I could say, "Yes, I just got a phone call. My son needs me to redo his taxes." I know I'm fixated on that. And
It's the
and I could
season.
say, "That's my priority. So, I wanna get that done this morning." Um, and I mean, wow, that would be really, really neat, I think.
Have an upfront dialogue. Doesn't need to be
A
voiced
lot.
because it could just be it could
Mhm.
just be a an intelligent an
Mhm.
intelligent give and take.
Right, right. Just
And
like
then
you would.
if
Yeah, you might have a team meeting in the morning. "Okay, what are we doing today?" Um, and I think that would be
well,
really quite something.
what if that weren't scheduled? So what if that were
Okay.
an app that sits on in front of all the auto schedulers? So you have your auto scheduler of choice, you put
Okay.
it in the background,
Okay.
and some app interacts with you. I ask you these questions, and all you knew
And then
was
knows
this
how to
app in
to
front.
interact with the auto scheduler?
Yeah, it had
Okay.
APIs and webhooks and whatever the heck other
Yeah,
technical stuff that it needs to do behind the scenes, and you didn't care. But
yeah,
you may need a little bit of training because I've
right.
tried to use I've tried to use Google Assistant to do
Mhm.
basic scheduling and gave up because frankly just typing it in was quicker than saying
Right,
Google set
right.
an appointment
Yeah.
for 3 o'clock.
Mhm.
It was it's not easy to use,
Right.
but I could imagine it could be something like Google Assistant that is better
Mm,
able to ask me the right questions. I could learn the syntax, and we
right.
could have this dialogue every morning. I mean, that doesn't
That would
seem,
be interesting.
to my naive point of view, it doesn't seem to be that hard. I bet you it's really hard, but I suspect I'm
Oh,
saying, here am I saying, oh, that should be
yeah,
easy. Can some developers, basically just manage all of the calendar stuff in the background and just have a normal conversation with me and use that to feed
right,
as an input? Well,
right.
why,
Yeah, so I could
why not?
say, block out 2 hours this morning for me to work on my son's taxes.
Yeah. And it says, done. Here's your
That's
new
a new
schedule.
thing. Yeah.
It's not adding a whole lot of, I don't, well, again,
Mhm.
I'm sure I'm underestimating the challenge of this because everyone tells me who designs software that it always looks easier than it
I
turns out
know,
to be.
I
It
know.
always it's never
Mhm,
it's 10 times harder than you think, even for the
mhm.
simplest stuff. So I'm sure it's going to be that case, but maybe that's a direction that we'd like to see. If we're going to do a review in for another 4 years, 5 years time,
Yeah.
maybe we'd like to see that one.
Yeah, that would be great, and, maybe my son will be, um, a graduate in, software programming by then, and we can we can get his
Okay.
input
Is
on
he
it.
will he listen to your podcast? You can send him the
Yeah,
link and say, son,
yeah. What do you
the
think?
next
Where
take
are
this
we
to the
with
next
this?
level.
Yeah,
Your mom took it to one level,
yeah.
and you can take it
Wow.
to the next. How about that?
Only conceptually, which I don't think that's that a amazing, but,
Well, actually, we
implementing it would be hard.
right, right. But we're
Mhm,
we're at the end of our hour together. But there are not. I can't. I've looked. I've not found other conversations like this one between people who have used auto schedulers. I just not. It's just I've
mhm.
searched the podcasts. I've seen reviews of individual auto schedulers by people who don't use them,
Oh, that's
or
funny.
people
That's
who don't
funny.
use an auto
Yeah,
scheduler,
right.
and they're coming across the concept for the first time, and they do a review
Mhm,
on YouTube or a podcast, but they're not a veteran auto scheduler who has written or talked about the ins and outs.
mhm.
So I wish there were more conversations like this between other people who are in the know, because I believe they're out there. It's just that they're not doing podcasts necessarily, and they're not
It could
coming
be.
on episodes, and
Yeah,
they don't
or
have we have each other.
well, or
Music,
maybe these people are too busy
doing
to
valuable
do it.
things.
Yeah, yeah, it could be. Oh my
And
gosh,
on that note,
hilarious. Well, it was very
so
fun. It's always
Dr. Mel, it's
really
great.
interesting and inspiring. to chat with you.
It is. It takes us in some unusual directions. I don't think did I do a ding for one of our, because this is a big ding for me, a big bell.
You did do a ding
I did do
already.
one. Okay, good. So
Mhm.
I'm going to do another one at the end,
Okay, okay.
just because we're the only people having these conversations. So everything we say here is like no one is saying this stuff about auto schedulers, or even again about the transition from using a task
Mhm.
manager to doing time blocking to using an auto scheduler.
Right.
It's not being talked about, and I think we're all the poorer for it.
Mhm.
I think the new apps that are coming out, they're not benefiting from a body of knowledge that, given that there's 10, 10, 15 auto schedulers, I believe many of them come out, they don't even know about the other ones. Because I've
I
talked to them and said, by the way, do you know that there are others? And they go, really?
Oh,
They actually do believe that they're like the first one. And they say things
wow.
like, this is the best app. This is the first app ever to do this. They
Mhm.
use this language in their copy, which tells me like,
They don't
wow,
know.
you didn't even do the market research to figure out
Mm.
that you're
Mm.
not the first. So
Right.
thanks for coming on. This is
Sure.
extraordinary, and I love doing brand new stuff with you. And um, I don't think we'll wait another 4 years. We'll wait another 4 years, won't we?
I don't know. I don't know. I we'll see. You know,
All right.
I can't predict what's gonna happen, going forward. Who knows?
Maybe there might be an explosion. We could look back at this moment where we're saying, I don't know, who knows, 5 years, 10 years. We could have a big laugh a year from now if all of a sudden things change, and they could change dramatically.
They could, for
So we'll
sure.
see. We could
Yeah.
have a let's save this moment and come back and have a good laugh.
All right, we will.
All right, great. Dr. Melanie Wilson, thanks for appearing on the Task Management and Time Blocking podcast. As you're listening, stay tuned. I'm going to tell you about the next episode that's coming up in our podcast, and also share with you some more information. So keep listening. Thinking of attending the next Task Management and Time Blocking Virtual Summit? Here's a 25% instant saving on your purchase of any ticket or content package. Simply visit timeblockingsummit.info/subscribe-to-podcast. Here's a clip from our next episode with Renee Claire. Does that ring a bell?
I'm like, yes, I've seen it quite a few times where management's like, yes, get on board with this task management software, and then they come back to the communication software and they're like, you do this, and this is urgent, and everything's urgent, and there's no it's so difficult to keep track of all the details and the pieces and understand a viable deadline when it's in a communication software.
And if you want to leave a comment about this episode or any aspect of the work that we're doing here at the Task Management and Time Blocking podcast, you can go over to www.replytofrancis.info and send me either a message by text or send me a voice message, a voice note. And as you probably know, we have a couple of places that you can interact with other people, talk about this episode. One is at the community, mightytaskers.scheduleu.org, and you'll see the link in the show notes. And the other, of course, is our upcoming Task Management and Time Blocking Summit coming up in March. Two outstanding opportunities to interact with other people about the ideas that you've heard on this podcast or any of our episodes that are coming up. And if you'd like to support the work we're doing, I invite you to click on the Patreon link below to make a donation. And please don't forget to like our show and recommend it to others on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, or whatever podcast app or service you're using. This is Francis Wade. I'm signing out. I hope to see you on a future episode. And until then, take care and all the best. See you later.